Appointments are made by those who are not present.
The microphones are on.
Okay, you just hit the mute all?
So I guess we can leave that.
Try not to stare at it.
All right, I'd like to call the meeting of the Budget Committee to order. It's Tuesday, May 31st, 2017, at 7:02 PM in the Aldermatic Chamber. Would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman at large Laurie Wilshire. Alderman at large Brian McCarthy.
Present.
Alderman at large Michael O'Brien is present. Alderman David Shoneman. Present. Alderman Ken Siegel. Present. Alderman Sean McGinnis is not present. Also in attendance is Alderman Tom Lopez, and Mayor Jim Donch is in the audience.
And the chair is present.
And the chair is present, thank you.
Alderman Dean.
Alderman Dean?
Alderman Dean is present, thank you.
Okay. First order of business is public comment. Seeing none. Communications.
There is none.
Okay, department reviews, general fund budget detail. This is for the Public Works and Engineering. Revenue is on page 46. Appropriations on page 199 for the Public Works and Engineering. Would the Public Works Director and her staff come up? Also present is Mayor Jim Donchis.
So, Mr. President, I'm really just here, Mr. Chairman, I'm really here just as Chair of the Board of Public Works and to introduce Director Photo, who's really going to take you through the various departments.
It's actually because you like budget meetings and
Exactly. And so I'm here to answer any questions you might have about
Okay.
anything I did. But other than that, I turn it over to Director Photo.
Okay, Director Photo, what we've been telling most of the departments is, tell us what's changed, what's going up, what's gone down, if things stayed the same, it's pretty simple.
I just have a little bit of an introduction, and then I'll turn it over to the department heads to give you that update on the changes in their
Okay,
budgets, if
have
that's
each one of
okay.
them introduce themselves. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Photo. I serve as Director of Public Works here in the city. I'm proud to lead 169 dedicated public works professionals. Our division has 6 departments, which include streets, park and recreation, solid waste, wastewater, engineering, and administration. We have many employees whose dedication, experience, and commitment in their area of expertise provide the city with an equivalent of a PhD in public works. Joining me this evening are members of the Public Works senior staff, including Carolyn O'Connor, Finance Administration Manager, Andy Patrician, Assistant Director, Steve Dukran, City Engineer, Nick Caggiano, Park and Rec Superintendent, John Ibarra, Street Superintendent, Noel Osborne, Wastewater Operations Supervisor, and Jeff LaFleur, Solid Waste Superintendent. Public Works touches the lives of every Nashua resident every day. The Division of Public Works provides the leadership and framework necessary to build and maintain a safe and sustainable city infrastructure that will be utilized by many future generations of Nashua residents. If you study history and look at all great civilizations, you'll find that what they all have in common was strong infrastructure. There are many important priorities in the city, but I believe that the city needs strong infrastructure to continue to grow and thrive. Under the leadership of Mayor Donchis and the Board of Public Works, we are building infrastructure that will last for many future generations of Nashua residents. The mayor presented and the Board of Public Works and Board of Aldermen approved 5 years of a 10-year plan to pave our streets. We're building a world-class skate park for the youth of this city. Our wastewater treatment plant is running better than ever, although we face tougher and tougher regulations from the EPA through the Clean Water Act. We're working on major upgrades to our SCADA system, pump stations, and headworks at the plant. We've improved our landfill gas collections, which resulted in much fewer odors. We have expansions planned at our landfill, which secures the future of our waste stream. We're working on repairing our sidewalks throughout the city. We want to see a stronger network for bicycles. We need to expand our bridge maintenance. We're hoping to consolidate our departments in one location at Burke Street, and there will be more information forthcoming on that project. We're adding new soccer fields at Charlotte Ave School and on Jewel Lane. And our next major project should be to look at the replacement of our sewer pipes, especially in the inner city. These are just some of the many important initiatives Public Works is working on. We are currently in negotiations with our two unions, AFSCME and UAW, and we have two UAW contracts, a clerical technical and a professional. And all three contracts expire June 30th of 2017. We have brought our general fund budgets in at $11,755,682, which includes $3,219,854 for Park and Rec, $7,036,233 for streets, $1,499,585 for a combined administration engineering, and for our enterprise funds, $17,270,837 for wastewater, and $7,105,008 for solid waste. $3.9 million of that is an appropriation from the general fund in solid waste. Utilities and fuel have been budgeted based on historical usage and purchasing guidelines for all departments. Each department will provide you with an overview of the changes in their budget. So with your permission, Alderman Dowd, we'll start with engineering, which is first on your agenda.
Absolutely.
Okay. And they'll give you an overview of the changes, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Okay.
Thank you. Steve Dukran.
Mr. Dukran, how you doing?
Good, Chairman Dowd. So I'll talk about Department 160, which is the Engineering and Administration budget. And the appropriations begin on page 199. And just a couple of changes budget-wise. Nothing significant in the wages, but the changes would be found on line item 54 under property services. We are carrying higher numbers for electricity and heating gas because we are incorporating those utilities that are going to be used for the Burke Street building. Just wanted to go back up into 51 under overtime. We are a little bit more than doubling the FY17 budget on overtime because we need to carry a budget to cover night paving, seeing that we're embarking on a larger paving program. Main streets will require night paving, and we need to cover the inspection with overtime. Those are the two most significant changes in the Department 160. With that, if you have any questions.
Okay, questions? Alderman Shoneman.
Mr. Dugan, can you please just explain the electricity and heating gas again for Burke Street? Those two line items, 54-100, 54-114. I didn't quite catch that.
Okay, so what we normally carry in an annual budget would be for the 9 River Street office that we occupy. And on an annual basis, that would be around $15,000 for electricity and around $2,000 for heating gas. The Burke Street building, which is going to be remain vacant until the project for reconstructing it or rehabilitation it of that building would need its utilities. So incorporating our budget would be what's needed to carry us until that the project is completed.
Thank you.
Other questions? So you mentioned the repaving project. Is there a list of the first streets that you're going to hit? I know you don't want to put a schedule out because people will be after you all the time, but is there a list of the streets that are going to be done first?
So what you see happening this year, we already have a contract in place, would be our annual paving program. And we do have a list of streets under contract. We are developing a list to add some streets probably to the existing contract or maybe a new contract from utilizing the money from the $7.5 million program. And so that list isn't finalized yet. We have Hina Swanson, who's helping us with the management of that program. We're working through picking the streets that we can address in short order, because as you know, when we pick streets, we have to go through the utility coordination, look at the sewers and so on. So our goal for this year, later in this year, is to pick streets that we can turn around, in a short time frame and have them paved. But that list isn't finalized yet.
Okay. The other thing is the Sharon Avenue intersection seems to be coming along pretty fast. I know they were talking about mid-July, but it looks like they should be done even before that if the weather holds.
Yes, we should be done before that, but mid-July is our goal. There's, the finished paving, the striping, getting the signals connected. Yeah,
Good.
so still quite a bit of work left.
Yeah, doing a good job there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Engineering? Nope. Okay, thank you, Mr. Ducraine. Okay, the next is Parks and Rec. Mr. Caggiano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Revenue's on page 48, by the way, and the appropriations on 204.
Yes, our revenues on page 48 are going to remain flat for this upcoming year. Currently, we're tracking to be able to hit our revenue projection for this year. I think we're going to have a little bit better cell tower revenue in the upcoming year, because as the change on Mine Falls occurred and we swapped over, more carriers are going to eventually come on. So that may increase, but for now, we're just leaving it current. On our appropriations page, which is on page 204, there's very few changes. Our temporary seasonal wages went up approximately $4,000. And that's due to, we're having to pay a little more for lifeguards right now. Pool people are at a premium, and we're competing with all the other surrounding communities. So in order to stay current with that and to keep good quality people in our pools, we have to increase that a bit. The next major change that you're going to see is in water. Water's up $16,000. There's a couple of reasons for that. The rates have gone up, and we've had some increases that came through from purchasing. And last year, we've also added 2 systems. We added the Legacy Playground, which we did the irrigation in, and we added the Holocaust Park, which is now online for irrigation. So we added 2 systems to our inventory. The next major change you're going to see is line 61307, which is our diesel fuel, and that's up about $5,900. And again, that's through purchasing guidelines. But our CNG is down $4,000, and that's based on history that we've used. Those are the major changes in the budget. There isn't much going on, increased or decreased, in order to hit our goal. And I'll entertain any questions if anybody has.
Alderman Siegel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is probably true of the rest of the departments also, but the one thing that really is big is the 52,300 line benefits. That's the big number, because that went from 283 to 368. So was that just guidelines from?
Those are guidelines that we receive from,
That's processed through Human Resources and Financial Services.
Could you just identify yourselves for the?
Carolyn O'Connor, Finance and Administration Manager. And
stenographer.
the benefits are budgeted through Human Resources and Financial Services.
So if I might follow up, yesterday we heard that there was going to be an adjustment on the per man health insurance, the working coverage, I suppose. Was that the term they used? The working rate, I'm sorry. So is that a reflection that we see here, basically?
I'd have to to get more of that information from
It's
Human
fine.
Resources, yeah.
You were given a number,
Yeah,
so it's really not discretionary on your part.
correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Alderman Shoneman.
Thank you. A few meetings ago, I forgot who was asked in here, it wasn't you folks. The question came up about the natural gas filling station, and since you mentioned it, I don't know, if someone here can maybe address that question. They said to wait for Public Works comes in, and as long as we raise the issue and you reference the cost there, do we know who manages the outside sales of the natural gas? Is that your department, or is it overall, or how does
No,
that?
no, that actually is AVSG. So essentially, AVSG owns the station, we just lease the land to them. So AVSG handles the marketing of the facility.
One of the notions about going to the natural gas was that there was going to be customers outside of the city who are going to be taking advantage of it and buying fuel there. Is that the case?
The only company that I'm aware of that's using the CNG station aside from the city is Liberty Utilities.
Okay, so it's not a profit maker at all for us. It's just, we just buy our gas there.
We receive about $1,000 a month on, for a lease.
Okay,
But
thank you.
that's, yeah.
Just again, for the stenographer, not, and maybe the people at home watching, if you could identify yourselves when you start talking.
Sure.
Okay. Because I don't think she's going to recognize all the voices. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Caggiano. All right. The next is the street department. The revenue's on page 47, the appropriations are on 201.
Johnny Barra, Street Superintendent. As you can see, we're projecting $3,500 in revenue next year. Actual for this year was $11,580. That's for out-of-service vehicles that have gone to auction. So hopefully we'll do better than that.
Okay,
I don't have a lot of changes. We're pretty much level funding, though my most significant one would be eliminating one vacant position that I had as assigned maintenance for a savings of $48,485. That's 51100. The changes in overtime and longevity, those are all contractual. Same in the pension and the benefits. Electricity went up 4,220. That's based on the purchasing guidelines and an increase in the rates. The water went from 5,000 to 5,700, also rate increase. We did cut $800 out of other contracted services, which is line 55699. Fuel is again based on historical usage. Unleaded went up $15,218, but we were able to save based on historical usage on the diesel, and we cut $9,501 out of that line. And that's really all I have for changes.
questions for streets? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
The next is enterprise funds, and we're into the solid waste disposal system fund. The revenue is on 266 and the appropriations on 268.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent, Solid Waste. My revenue detail, much like Nick Caggiano's, is going to stay flat this year, just as a projection. If we go over to page 269, you'll see my 51400, that's going up a little bit. My wages, temporary, seasonal. I'm going to try to bring that up to my 10 employees that I can have per contract. I have a lot more stuff going on at the landfill, so I want to keep up with it. Hiring these two extra individuals will help me out for the time frame between April and October. 54280, I'm going up $5,000 this year on that. My buildings and equipment area is getting very laxed and beaten up pretty hard, so I'm trying to do a little bit of repairs here and there, so that's the reasoning for the building and grounds going up a little bit. My next change would be 61107, clothings and uniforms. That's through my contract. We have UniFirst doing our uniforms, I'm sorry, and they went up a little bit. 61307, I went up a little bit for diesel. With all the new recycling that's going out and the amount that's coming in, I'm using a little bit more diesel than usual. So I'm gonna budget just a little bit more for diesel there. And then one of my last significant changes, the transfer to closure trust fund, 89701. That's a fund that goes in that we have to have per our permit for closing the landfills. And we have an engineering, Sanborn Head, our engineering firm, goes out and figures out how much we have to put into place each year, and that's gradually going up. In fact, in the next few years, you'll see a significant jump in that. And that's for all our liner material, and that's to provide that the city will be able to close the landfill when it's time. So other than that, that's basically all my changes for this year. Any questions?
Questions? Alderman Shoneman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 267, just looking at the total revenues again. And, you know, last time you guys were in, it was a year ago, so refresh my memory if I need some help here. I see the actual through 3/31 was $7 million. Yet we're looking at $3 million. What happened? How does the actual and the budgeted revenue with regard to the general fund appropriation, how does all that get reconciled when everything is said and done, when actual revenues are known?
Okay, defer to Carolyn.
Okay.
As to how we do the transfer for the general fund?
As to how we calculate what the number needs to be. What is our real revenue going to be and what is our appropriation? How's that all going to work? How does that shake out in the end?
After the budget is approved, and then that number will be calculated to, because your revenues and your expenses have to match. So it'll be through financial services when they close out the year.
Alderman Shoneman, follow
Thank
up?
you. So it's done retroactively, essentially? We sort of forecast it, but then it's a retroactive adjustment at the end of the year. And our revenues are looking like they're going to come in at $7.8 million for 2017, or what's the, I'm looking again at page 267. What's the number of the revenue that we likely are going to see for this fiscal year?
This is projecting the 7.8, which includes a 3.7 transfer from the general fund.
I see. That includes the transfer. Thank you.
Yes, Alderman Dean.
I would imagine what will be done when they reconcile at the end is if the revenues exceed what isn't needed from the 3.7 out of the general fund, then it'll end there, and the 3.7 will drop down, and just stay in the general fund itself.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Wastewater user fund, revenue on 276, appropriations on 278.
Hi, Noelle Osborne, Plant Operations Supervisor at Wastewater. Revenue is all based off of calculations that the Finance Department does. So any changes there are based off of their calculations. Moving into page 278, wages, that's all contractual, all the changes there. On page 280, under the 51 salaries and wages, slight increase in the overtime as well, and that's just, again, based on the salary increases that are contractual. small increase in the 5300s, the accounting and auditing service, small increase there. That's a number, Carolyn, help me out with that one.
Carolyn O'Connor, Finance and Administration Manager. That is their portion of the accounting auditing contract for the city.
Going down to the 5400 line item, 54280, buildings and ground maintenance, you'll see that that's a little bit increased, and that's based off of our actual usage in the FY17 budget. Another increase in the page 281, 5500 line series, 55400. Small increase in the conferences and seminars for some increased training programs that we're interested in. Same grouping, 55514, license and permit fees. You'll see that increased by about $2,500. We're seeing an increase in per ton costs for our air permit fee, so we got hit with a pretty hefty bill this past year, so we're trying to offset that and prepare for that. In the 6100 line item, 61100, office supplies, a small increase, again, based on our FY17 usage. And then jumping into page 282, you'll see in the 8100 line item, 81200, buildings and improvements, a large increase there. And that's based on some FY18 projects. We're looking at cleaning out our primary digester, which is a large undertaking, interior and exterior doors throughout the facility, gates, valves, and actuator replacements throughout the facility, things that have just been, it's time to replace them. So we're trying to prepare for that. And additionally, an installation of a new heat exchanger. So all that's lumped into there. I think that's the majority of our changes.
Questions? Alderman Dean?
You're emptying the digester?
We're emptying it out, we're cleaning it out, we're inspecting, and we're putting it back together. Yes.
How long do you think that, did they give you a timeline on how long that would take?
We are estimating about a month that it'll be down in the whole turnaround aspect because we have to dewater the 1.3 million gallons that are in there, clean it out, inspect it, and then refill it. And it'll take a little bit of time to get us to the Class B biosolid status that we're currently at now, too. So
That's going to be quite the job, quite the project.
yes.
Thank you. You're going to let the neighborhood know when that, you pull the top off.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure they may be calling you.
They'll be calling, but yes, we intend to tell them.
Okay. Alderman Shoneman?
Ask a question about sort of future outlook for the department. One of the things that, one of the justifications that I supported for buying a Burke Street property was the need for land to expand wastewater. What's the outlook for that requirement? How far down the road do we need to be considering an expansion that would use some of that land? What's a general outlook, if I could?
That's a kind of an open-ended question. It depends on the regulations that come down from EPA. We're still awaiting our newest permit to be finalized. If there's any kind of treatment facilities that we need to put in at the head end, that's a great place to do it. I don't know that there's an actual physical use right now, but it is a probability down the road. I just don't know what it'll be used for yet.
Yep.
Thanks.
Director Photo?
Thank you. May I just add to that? So one of the things that we recently found out was that we now need to treat for phosphorus, which is going to be a very costly proposition. We need to build a building in order to do so. So after we do that, we don't have any additional room for expansion. So any other requirements that could come down from EPA, and I expect that there will be some, we will need that extra room to be able to expand. So it will be critical. I don't. It's hard to say when that will be, but at some point we'll need that.
Oh, is it a follow-up?
I just asked when the phosphorus requirement is going to be imposed.
I think we have a 5-year plan on that right now. So
Once the permit's
once the permit's
finalized.
final.
Thank you.
Alderman Siegel?
Mr. Chairman, that was what motivated the Burke Street purchase was the complete lack of land to do anything with the wastewater treatment plant and the potential difficulty of undergoing a taking of the land, unfortunately. So that's why we did it.
Just a question I have, are we looking at what we think the approximate land usage requirement would be? So it can be sort of put aside, if you will, for the wastewater treatment plant? I know it's all the same department, but at the moment anyway. But, you know, it would be kind of nice to know, okay, that's the land that's going to be set aside for the wastewater.
Well, most of that, Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works, most of that land will just be parking anyway. So certainly whatever we needed for the wastewater treatment plant, we would utilize. It's hard to make that determination because it really depends on where at the plant we need to expand. So, and that would really depend on what the requirements are. So it will be open. We don't have any intention of building anything that would prevent us from
Okay.
expanding.
Did you have a follow-up, Alderman Singh? No? Another question I have is,
I just want to mention, excuse me, that Commissioner Moriarty from the Board of Public Works
Commissioner?
is now in attendance.
Okay. Question I have, and I think I know the answer, but Hudson's utilization of our sewage treatment plant is covered through the user fees?
Covered through,
They are,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Carolyn O'Connor, Finance and Administration Manager. They are charged both sewer user fees and they contribute 12.58% to capital projects that have to do with operations.
Okay, I think that's good info. Any other questions for wastewater? Okay, any general questions for the department? Alderman Shoneman.
Thank you. Actually, I don't have a general question. I just have a comment. It sounds like the conversation is perhaps being wrapped up, but I just wanted to comment on Director Photo's comments at the beginning when you talked about need for strong infrastructure. I think that, and I think it's worth saying and repeating for the folks at home that I think one of the expectations, reasonable expectations that taxpayers have is for strong infrastructure. It's vital. We often say that you got to flush the toilet, it's got to stay down, and you have to have paving, you have to have all these kinds of things. If and when any discussions of prioritization of what gets done and what doesn't get done occur, I strongly support doing infrastructure that's necessary for the city, whether it's landfill or streets or wastewater, whatever it is. These are the things that people, I think, have one of the most reasonable expectations of quality services for the money they spend. So I appreciated the comment.
Thank you.
The other thing, you said you're going to be having to replace sewage downtown and because of its age. And I assume we have a plan that says we're digging up all the streets first before we start doing any paving down there. But I'm sure that's in your plan, but just thought I'd mention it.
We, at least,
Alderman, yes, Director Photo.
thank you. Certainly will replace any stores that we can. We're going to look at everything. If any stores are compromised, we'll be replacing them. Unfortunately, we don't have the funds to be able to replace all stores as we do our paving program. But we are, the city engineer and I are looking right now we've discussed putting out an RFP for a contract to look at all our sewers and come up with a plan and a strategy to start addressing some of the worst. So we're discussing that right now.
Okay.
So we will be doing that.
Do they have any way of inspecting those to see just how bad they are?
We need to camera all the lines,
Okay.
and that's what we'll be doing. We do have a lot of video already of our sewers, but we do need to do some additional work. We do some of that in-house, but we don't have the capacity to do all of it.
Okay. Any other questions? President McCarthy.
Yeah, I hope you're putting that video up on the web. Question I had is, does the Hudson revenue show up just in the general sewer user charges line? I found the capital one down below, but is the sewer user charges line is both Nashua and Hudson?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. No other questions? Director Photo, thank you very much for coming in with your staff.
Thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Yep, yep, thank you.
No, you can't do that.
Okay, unfinished business,
There is none.
new business?
There is none.
I don't think there's anything we want to take from the table. Could be wrong. And general discussion? Public comment, there's no public. Remarks by the Alderman. Alderman McCarthy.
In terms of a discussion we had last night, I wanted to point out that I've since found out the appropriation I had asked about in the civic and community activities for the Micro Society Academy is actually for a summer program for underprivileged kids that school runs. So it's not to serve their base educational mission, but I still think there's an issue there with, we ought to understand what our policy is for those things.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, there's no reason for a non-public. Do I hear a motion? Alderman Siegel.
Adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 7:39 PM.